Are you ready to start a new quilting project, but you don't quite know where to begin? Well, today I'm going to teach you the skills on how to empower yourself to get that project going. So keep watching. Hi, it's Fran Morgan with Fabric Cafe. You have told us that the most challenging thing about starting a new project is choosing your fabric. And then, of course, finding the perfect pattern to go with that fabric. Well, today we're going to do a deep dive and give you the perfect strategies on how to be successful every time in your quilt projects. Okay, so the very first step on starting a project and matching your fabric is to pull your fabric together. Now, let's start by talking about 3-yard kits. As you know, whenever you make a 3-yard pattern, you have a number 1 fabric, a number 2 fabric, and a number 3 fabric. And so what you would do if you were pulling this kit from your stash at home, we're going to take our fabrics and we're going to sort them. Now we're going to start by sorting them light, medium, and dark. So I have lots of fabrics here, so we're going to just kind of start pulling them together. So on some of these, I would say, okay, these are probably mediums or a light. This one would be a light. This one would be a light. Now you see this one? This one is probably a dark, and this one is probably a dark. Now keep in mind whenever you do this, don't worry about it. There's no, just do it by your gut. So just go ahead and sort them light, medium, and dark. So this one's dark, we're just going to pull all these together. This one's medium, this one would be a medium. This one probably is a light, a dark, a dark. This looks more like a light, a dark, a medium. Do it just this fast. Don't second guess yourself. Just put them into piles, okay? Because what we're wanting to do, that would be kind of a medium, and this one would probably be a light. Okay, so now we have this. So if you're building a 3-yard kit, the first thing I would suggest you do, look through your piles after you have them light, medium, and dark, pull your focus fabric. It does not matter what pile it comes from. Okay, so I'm going to flip through here. Now this would be a cute focus. Let's look through this pile. Oh, we've got this one. And we also have, that would be a cute focus. All right, this dark pile, let's look at this. Oh, this would be a gorgeous focus, would it not? This could be a fun focus too. So as you can see from each of the light, medium, and dark piles, you can pull a focus from it. So any of those would work. I really like this floral one. So let's do this one as our focus here. Now, with a 3-yard quilt kit, when you're pulling it together, this is our focus, and it's a dark. So the next one we need to do is a light, and that is the background. So let's look through our light pile and find us a background that works. So probably would not put gnomes with our flowers, so that one's kind of out. Now this one's really pretty. It's a light. It would probably work. This one also would probably work. That could be really pretty. Any of these, let's see, I think one of these too, but I really think I like this blue speckle. So that's my light. That's kind of how I do. I just lay them up there and I look. One of the reasons why I picked this as a number 2, this number 1 focus is a dark. It has the blue as the background. This has a little bit of blue, so it's going to pick that up. It's going to be really cool, okay? Now, something to keep in mind whenever you do a number 2 fabric. You don't want something that's too printed and has colors that are too close to your focus fabric. Because if your number 2 has too much like the focus, it could blend in and kind of mush together. You don't want it to be muddy. You want that contrast to give you that success. All right, let's pick a number 3. In our focus fabric, we have beautiful colors. We have navy, that could be an option. We have these beautiful oranges and golds, that could be an option. And we have some greens. So whenever you're looking at your fabric, kind of look at those colors that pop out to you, and let's get that contrast and figure that out. So looking at our dark pile, well, that one probably wouldn't work. It's a little too printed to go for a number 3, because what's going to happen is it's going to conflict with this. Remember what I just said about your lights? If there's too many colors that are the same, it's going to blend together. We don't want that. So that one's kind of out of the question. All right, here's a nice red. I don't prefer the red simply because this is a little bit more orange in here. So that one's out of the question. Look at this one. This one's an orange. Ooh, that's great. So we pick up our orange in here. It contrasts with our number 2. It looks really gorgeous. So that is definitely an option. Got some teal here. I think the teal is really pretty, and you know, it could work, but I'm loving the orange so much, I'm gonna set it aside. And then of course the purple, there's really no purples in my focus. So that's gonna go to the side. So here we go. We pulled a focus from our dark pile, which is totally okay, could come from any pile. Pulled a light from our light pile that coordinates well, and we pulled a dark from our dark pile that really gives us a punch with our orange. Perfect every time. If you stick to that strategy and that process, it's gonna work. Now, what if you're not doing a 3-yard quilt and you want to pull for a different kind of pattern? Now I have one here. This is actually a downloadable pattern that is available from Fabric Cafe. It is called Spools, and it takes 5 yards. As you look at this, kind of pay attention, because as you can see, there's an obvious light background. And then we have all the different colors of spools, which are really great. So if I was doing this pattern and I was choosing from our light, medium, and darks, I would start off with, okay, this would be a really fun scrappy quilt, okay? I'm gonna pull some lights that I like. So let's pull, so this would be a good light for a background for a spool. This would be a good light. This one may be a little bit too printed, it might conflict. This one and this one would be a good light. So as you look at the pattern, you can see that any of these would work as the background of the spools. As you go through, what I would do is I would actually look at these spools independently and say, okay, I want to make 2 of the blocks that look like XYZ. So let's start pulling darks and mediums. Now, this has great contrast. So I think that would be 1 spool block. Now this is from my medium pile, but that's okay. Great contrast with my light. So see, I started with my lights. It was kind of cool because I want to make sure I get that contrast. All right, that would be very interesting. So that could be several of the blocks right there. Now let's do another block. Let's break it down that way, because the points, the half square triangles, have to have that contrast. So here's another light. What could I put here? Well, that could work. That could be an option. That would be cute to have gnomes. But my gnomes are directional, so I don't know if that's the best choice. So I'm going to put that back. I'm going to look at the other ones here. Don't have a lot of print. Oh wait, look at this one. This could be a fun spool. Now this one is not directional. Has fair contrast with that, maybe not as much. So I think I'm going to put that back. Now let's look at these. Okay, need contrast, remember? So just kind of go through. Oh, this is really nice. I like that for a few spools. That could be really good. Now, if I put these 2 together, are they going to work? For a scrappy quilt, why not? But that's something else to consider, is a little bit of the aesthetics. So if you want to stick to florals, do all your florals. If you want to stick to kind of a holiday theme, do a holiday theme. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But pull them, look at them, see how they work together. It's going to be fabulous. So the main thing and the main points I want you to take from this particular point is, go with your gut, don't take a lot of time. Pull your pattern together, pick your light first, so that's your background, then start pulling some mediums and darks that will contrast well. Just plan it out, go with your gut. You've got this. So our next step in strategy in choosing the perfect fabric for the perfect pattern is scale. So we have 3 kits laid out here on the table, and we're going to talk about scale and talk about each one of these. Now, I have some handy dandy squares here. I'm going to pull the first one. This square is going to show me what it's like to put this fabric into a 10-inch section. So I'm going to lay it down on this fabric here. Now, this works really well with this fabric. It's a larger block, the 10-inch block. This is representing that. And you can see that this really shows off the sunflowers really, really well, because it's a larger print and we want to be able to see those beautiful blooms on our quilt. That's part of the reason why you would choose this as your focus fabric. So as a 10-inch block, you can see it works really well. We have also pulled together our yummy blue that we pulled whenever we were pulling our fabrics, and the orange. It's going to be great. So when using a larger print like this, a tip is to choose a larger block. Now we have this made up, and I've got an image on the screen for you in our Friendship Star Quilt. And you can see how great it is. So it really shows off that nice print so that you can see the blooms of the flowers, and it works really well. Now, let's put a different size square on here so we can see what it looks like if you use it in a smaller block. So I actually have a 6-inch. Now, this inside part here is going to be 6 inches. If I lay it on my fabric, of course the fabric is still glorious and beautiful, but it does cut it up an awful lot. So if you are really wanting to get the full effect of those wonderful blooms, you're going to want to put this fabric in a larger block. Now, what if you have a fabric that has gorgeous colors? And I've experienced this numerous times. Gorgeous colors, love it, but you really don't like the print. But just cut it up so that it becomes a texture. What we would do is put it in a smaller block. So once again, 6-inch block or even smaller. So what that's going to do, let me just kind of, so what if it was like this big or this big? You see how it just kind of pulls in the colors, but you can't really see what it is. So that would be a great tip for one of those challenging fabrics you may have in your stash. We've got an image on the screen of this fabric, this kit made up in hopscotch. And the reason why we are showing you this is so that you can see how you can cut it up and make a great colorful fabric into a texture. And that's how we've used it here. And it works really well. I think it's fantastic. So if you ever get in one of those fabric challenges, you've got a secret, okay? All right, so let's look at our next kit. Now, I'm going to pull over once again our 10-inch square. As you can see here, we have these lovely little butterflies. Now, this is a smaller print, and whenever you put it in a block as large as a 10-inch square, it almost doesn't seem, it kind of just gets boring because it comes across like there's not enough going on. The images don't fill the frame enough to give you the interest and the pop that you're looking for. So let's try some other ones. So I have an 8-inch square here. Okay. I think that's better, but look at this. This seems better for scale with the butterflies. Because it's a smaller print, the 6-inch looks great. Okay, I'm going to hang on to the 6-inch here, and I'm going to put our 10-inch back on here. Now, can you see the difference? Do you see what I mean? Now, I have an image on the screen for you that you're going to be able to see what this is going to look like made up with this large block. So this pattern here is our Easy Street pattern. Of course, it's adorable. If you love it, of course you can do it. That is absolutely fine. But I feel like that it doesn't give you the wow that you're looking for whenever you have a finished quilt. It's just a little bit too small for such a large block. Okay, let's put our 6-inch back on. All right, like I said, I think this is a better scale for this size of print. This is a toss print. It's very sweet. I really like the butterflies. And what we've done here is we have put it in Courtyard. Now, Courtyard actually is a smaller block that the print is in, so it really does help with keeping it together. And I think it has a lot more punch going on than the butterflies in a large block. So I hope you're seeing what I'm talking about here. We have these darling gnomes. Now, if we were to put the gnomes in a 6-inch square, if we just kind of move this around, you can see that we could possibly be cutting our fabric out according to the pattern, and we could cut some gnome heads off. We don't want to do that. We want to see as much gnome as possible. All right, I'm going to grab my 8-inch. So here's my 8-inch square here. We've got our center so we can block out, we can move it around, and you can see that we see enough of the gnomes and their little abodes here so that it's going to look really great. But let's put it in a big one and see what happens. Okay, this is darling. I love it in the 10-inch, and this is why. This fabric has a lot of interest in and of itself. It's very darling, it's very cute. I can see a lot of gnomes in this, It's not quite as big of a print as our flowers were, but I think it works really well on this size because there's so much interest and character in the fabric itself, which is really important. Now, I also want to say, just to mention it, this is a directional fabric, so whenever you're choosing your patterns, don't forget to look for that. In fact, we actually have a video that talks about directional fabric specifically, so if you haven't seen that, go check that out. All right, love the gnomes in this size block. I have an image on the screen, and this pattern is pretty simple, and I love it because the pattern is simple. It focuses on the fabric, not necessarily on the piecing, and it looks amazing. Now, all of these kits are available on our website, fabriccafe.com, and don't forget, they're only available while supplies last. So let's go ahead and dive into the pattern itself, because part of your successful quilting strategy needs to be the right fabric with the right pattern. So just a few things to consider whenever you're working with that. So the first one I want to talk about is our cute little Christmas quilt here with our holly. We've got a very nice light and dark here for our kit, and I have actually put this into our Flights of Fancy pattern. Now, these patterns, because these are smaller prints, are going to go in patterns that are a little bit more dynamic in the piecing of the pattern. So what I mean by that is it's not a simple pattern with just squares. This is something that you're drawing your interest with the piecing as well as the fabric. So the fabric is more color because the prints are smaller, and you're picking up the interest from the pattern. So let's look at Flights of Fancy. So let's put that on the screen, and you can see how we've got these great flying geese scattered across so that it gives you some interest here. We've got our light so that our eye rests, and the holly is in a nice rectangular block that's the proper size. So it looks really, really great. And there's enough interest in this pattern that even though this is a little bit more of a simple print, it's very appealing. Now, I also want to do a little shout out here. If you have not checked out Terribly Rad's YouTube channel, she is doing the Year of 3-Yard Quilts, and she is going to be featuring this pattern, so be sure and check out her video. She's got some great stuff there. Now, I want to talk some more about dynamic patterns. So dynamic patterns, as we were saying, are patterns that have a lot of movement. Now, I'm going to give you some examples. So if you have smaller prints or bold colors that you want to put in, these are some great patterns. The first one I want to talk about is called Evergreen. Now, this is a great pattern because we've got some trees going on here. You've got a lot of interest in the piecing and the pattern itself. So it can support some simpler fabrics. It could be some bold fabrics too, but this is a great one for simple fabrics. All right, the next one we have is called Ribbons. This pattern has fantastic movement. You just see those ribbons going from top to bottom. They're twirling, they're just amazing. This is all in the piecing of the pattern. So if you have simpler prints, this is a great one to choose. All right, I've got one more that I want to share with you. It is called Liberty. Now, Liberty is fantastic for those simpler prints because it has so much movement and the burst of the stars. It's really going to be fantastic. You're going to have a very successful end finished quilt. As long as you keep that contrast, as long as you get those simple prints, it's going to be amazing. So these are very dynamic patterns that you can use for those simpler prints, small, like medium to smaller prints on your fabric, and you're going to be successful every time. Okay, so let's talk about patterns that have very busy fabrics or fabrics that you want to showcase, really highlight and look at the fabric. So what we're going to do is we have our gnomes here. I just love these little guys. And what we've done is we've put our kit together with like a double focus. So we have gnomes here, we have gnomes here, and then we have our number 3 for our pop. Now, whenever you have a fabric like this, you really want to focus on the fabric. You're going to choose, it's your choice, right? So you go in and say, okay, I've got beautiful florals or fun gnomes or a great Christmas fabric with ornaments or whatever the case may be. The fabric is the star. So let's choose a pattern that's a little bit simpler so that you're not looking at the movement of the pattern and the piecing, but you're looking at the fabric. So here we have put gnomes in pretty simple, and as you can see on the screen, this is a super fast pattern. We just have our blocks that really showcase the gnomes, and our number 3 divides those two focus fabrics so that you can really focus in on those gnomes. So it works beautifully. All right, I have a few more that I want to share with you that would work equally as well if you have some really dynamic fabric. So the first one is Sew Quick. On this one, we have a little bit of movement in this quilt, but we also have some nice big blocks. So if you have a bigger fabric, a bigger print fabric, it would work really, really well in this, and it's going to showcase that fabric. It's really going to pop. The next one that we're going to showcase is Sweet Times. Now, as you can see from the image, we have our ballerinas in the blocks, and that's the fabric that we're focusing on. You don't want the ballerinas to get cut up, or you don't want to be distracted by some of the dynamic patterns that we were looking at earlier. You want to keep the blocks simple so that you can really focus in on those ballerinas, because I know one little girl out there would love to have some ballerinas, and she really wants to focus on those. All right, the next one that we're talking about is Porch Rails. Now, Porch Rails also has some nice movement to it, but it also has a nice big block. So your light and your dark fabric, your 2 and your 3, is really going to highlight your focus. So nice big blocks, it's going to focus on that so you can get a really great fabric. You don't need the fabric, the pattern to be so dynamic, because we're focusing on the fabric. So great fabric, you want a simpler pattern. A little bit simpler fabric, you want a great dynamic pattern that adds the movement. I believe that these 3 steps will empower you to have a successful project every single time. Now, if there's something that I didn't cover here that you would like to know, be sure to put it in the comments below, and we'll try to address those in a future video. Now remember, these kits are available on our website, fabriccafe.com, but in limited quantities. So be sure to check those out. It's Fran Morgan with Fabric Cafe. Happy quilting!